my word, what a save.
She gets around Dunbar, out wide, but she puts it in the net. Lovely strike, lovely bit of play.
Oh, and he's looking to catch the goalkeeper out. It is an unbelievable goal.
Hello and welcome to Kickoff, the official podcast of NPL New South Wales and Football New South Wales Leagues competitions. I'm Pellizzeri and my new co-host is Maeve Sparrow. Maeve, great to have you on the pod.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Now, you are not completely new to the NPL New South Wales landscape because over the last 5 weeks or so, we've seen you hosting NPL Women's Match of the Day on socials, and you've also been out and about to a couple of other events. You've really made a big splash on the scene straight away, your smiling face and your interviews, so it's a pleasure to have got you into the podcast as well.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed getting out and about for the Match of the Rounds, seeing the talent, especially, I cover all the women's games, so it's really exciting to see that growing and booming and things like that. So I really enjoy it.
So we've got a few things off the top before we get into our three guests. Great. I can tell you that ever since we've had the guests come out and join us in person at Valentine Sports Park, I think the pod has really gone to the next level, and we have three more in-person guests coming up on this episode. But we need to start with moment of the last month since the pod last convened. Maeve, I'll start with yours. What was your moment of the month?
Okay, Maeve's magic moment. Honestly, I have a few off the top of my head, like bicycle kicks that scored beautiful goals, great pens, but there was one moment that really stood out to me and I keep coming back to. It was in round 19 at Linwood Park. It was the Macarthur Rams versus the Northern Tigers. For both sides, it was a very important game. Rams needed to win to keep their heads above water to avoid relegation, and the Tigers, their final hopes were fading off into the distance and they needed to secure the 3 points to stay in the race. It was an electric game between the two. The Tigers were coming off a 4-game losing streak, so there just must have been something in the air. Savannah Murray, she is such a strong player on the field with so much control and just a great football IQ. 32 minutes into the game, she took a free kick from just outside the 18-yard box. She slots it with, honestly, so much power. I do not know how the goal net did not catch on fire. It was in the top right-hand corner. It was honestly electric. You need to check it out. The game ended up 5-1 in the end, and it was just action-packed. It was phenomenal. Great
moment of the month. Great choice. Mine would be the revival of both Apia and Spirit in the men's title race. I remember, I think it was either just before or just after the last podcast, I went to a game between Sydney United and the Wanderers where Sydney United won, and the gap between 6th and 7th was 8 points. And that weekend, the top 6 race looked done. The title race was starting to break away and become a bit of a two-horse race, and the relegation battle wasn't that interesting. And we've had so many favourable results over the last month. The title race is now a 4-team race between Marconi, Rockdale, Spirit and Apia, which is fantastic. The top 6 race, wide open, as we'll hear from one of our guests. No one wants 5th or 6th right now, so it's great to have a title race that's going down to the wire, and top 6 as well. And the relegation battle, 3 doesn't go into 2, and I think maybe Sutherland might be safe, but they might get roped in, so it could still be 4 into 2 in relegation. We've just been blessed as neutrals with favourable results that have kept all the major battlegrounds alive for us. Now, we have had a piece of silverware awarded already. Congratulations to Sydney United 58, the most times winner of the Waratah Cup. They defeated the Northern Tigers 1-0 in the final. And, of course, those two teams will meet again in the Australia Cup round of 32. But congratulations to Sydney United 58 on winning the first major trophy of the Football New South Wales season. However, the next piece of silverware is just days away from being handed over. It will be the Sapphire Cup final between Apia Leichhardt and the Mount Druitt Town Rangers. Maeve, you will be here on Thursday at Valentine Sports Park. What are you looking forward to? What do we need to know, and what are we looking forward to about that final?
Well, personally, what I'm looking forward to, it's going to be a gripping match. Mount Druitt Rangers, they're at the top of the table right now, and also they're coming up against Apia. They do have a bit of a rivalry. The last game that I was at between the two of them, it was very intense. So the atmosphere here at Valentine Sports Park will be off the charts. Also, we have the Emerging Matildas Championships happening at the same time. So we'll have a lot of younger women here and a lot of younger girls here watching the senior football.
It'll really boost the crowd, won't it? And I think as a spectacle, that can only be benefited because I imagine a lot of the players staying in accommodation either at or near Valentine Sports Park will make their way down just to enjoy the game and fill out the crowd a bit.
Yeah, definitely. If you're around, please come down. The game will kick off at 7 p.m. at the home of football, Valentine Sports Park. If you're not able to make it, you can stream it live on our YouTube. For all the exclusive BTS behind the scenes and game day action, you can tune in on our socials on Football New South Wales stories with me to get all the coverage. So it'll be really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Great to hear. That is Thursday. If you are listening to this podcast, it's a quick turnaround from when we're recording to when we're getting it out in order to give the Sapphire Cup final a nice big pump up. All right, enough from us. Let's get into our guests. They are the star of the show, and we're going to start with NPL Men's New South Wales. You're listening to Kickoff. So it's time for our first guest, and we start with NPL Men's New South Wales. From the Wollongong Wolves, it's Nick Olsen, one of their star players. Nick, thanks for coming to see us on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So at the time of you joining us, it is a bit of a new start for the Wollongong Wolves. You've just had a change of coach. We met you at a very interesting time of the season. You're still in the finals race. You've still got the Australian Championship to look forward to. How do you assess how the season has gone?
Yeah, obviously it's an unusual time at the club with Warren leaving, but we have a close-knit group of players, and I'm sure that we'll stick together throughout the end of the season. In terms of sort of how the season's been, it started off sort of quite well, but I guess mid of the season to now it's sort of really been up and down. We sort of get a win against a top team, and then we lose against sort of a team down the bottom, and then we get a draw against a middle team. It's just sort of a bit topsy-turvy.
No one wants fifth or sixth at the moment. At the time we're talking, it seems as though as soon as teams get into those spots on the ladder, they start dropping points, and we've got this cluster for the championship, and then we've got a cluster for fifth and sixth. So it must give you a lot of belief. I mean, there's still 7 weeks at the time we're talking of games to go. It's a lot of football. I mean, if you get on a winning streak, even just 2 or 3 in a row could totally change your season.
Yeah, definitely. I think the win against St. George was a big positive for us, just getting 3 points and staying closer to, I guess, the top 6 in a sense. It's really that 6th spot that I think we're fighting for. So that was really good. And then I guess the point against United is probably not exactly what we wanted, but, it's still a point gained.
What's been different with Julio Miranda as coach? I guess Warren Grieve came in, he's had the team for 2/3 of the season, he's since moved on. Never easy, but I'm sure it's something that you've seen over the course of your career. Coach changes happen all the time. So what was different and what felt the same about this?
Yeah, I mean, it happens in football, happens everywhere. I've been part of situations where it's happened before, so it's not really unusual for me. But in terms of Julio taking over, he sort of just, I guess, continued on because, they work so close together. They're always on the phone and always sitting down together talking tactics and that sort of thing. So, look, it's kind of been an easy transition. We know him well, and he's just doing his best to try and help us kick on and get into the finals.
The Australian Championship, let's just quickly cast our eye forward to that. It's a long season, but you've played professionally, in some very interesting places in the world, which we will get to. But in terms of readying your body, knowing that it could potentially be as many as 40 games when you throw in cup ties as well, what are you preparing for? And then what messages are you passing on to some of the players who have only ever played, say, come through the juniors of New South Wales? Maybe they're used to more of a 22 to 25 game season, and now they're looking at 35 plus.
I think for me, it's sort of, since I've been in the professional environment, I've sort of done the same thing, had my same schedule, made sure that I've done my gym session during the week to make sure that during the season my body's ready for the game on the weekend, and also that I'm sort of keeping that level base, in case you have to sort of play those extra games, midweek games. So I think the important thing for the boys in our team is just make sure, we're looking after our bodies. And I guess Julio's good, and when we had Warren as well, is our loading during the week as well, because we know that, we've got a 30-week season, potentially finals, but then we also have, another competition which is potentially, it's the best of the best in the country. So we also want to make sure that we don't peak too early, but we also want to make sure that we kind of get to a good level where we can, give our best performances and continue that on into the championship.
Yeah, definitely. And the championship's such a big deal. And, you've returned to the Wolves this year following your time overseas and also in Melbourne. What made you return to the Wolves?
Yeah, good question. Probably there was a lot of reasons why I went to Wollongong. To be honest, after playing in Melbourne, the reason why I went to Melbourne for a year was because they're all grass fields. So that was sort of a big tick of the box for me when I came back to to New South Wales, I wanted to play on grass again for, as many games of the season as I could, which helps my body. And also the championship as well was a big one too. Playing the championship, new competition, something to strive for. And I'm a very ambitious player, so something like that was also another tick of the box. And then I heard it was a great culture down there. And, so far, all the way up until now, it's proven right. A great bunch of boys, a great club culture. And, it's exciting times. It's a big region down there, and hopefully we can really do well in the championship.
Yeah, all the best for the championship. And you've played in Victoria, and now you're playing in New South Wales in the NPL. What would you say is the biggest difference between the two?
I'd say the biggest difference probably physicality. I think because of the grass pitches down there and the weather, it's a little bit wet. There's a lot of slide tackles. The boys get stuck in more down in Melbourne, where here it's sort of a little bit more technical, where sort of, defending-wise, players more staying on their feet and sort of keeping their tactical shape. I'd say that's probably the biggest difference between Victoria and New South Wales.
Now, forgive me if I'm wrong. You grew up in the Shire, southern suburbs of Sydney? No? Whereabouts?
So I was born in Sydney, in Hurstville. I grew up in Perth until I was 9. Then when I moved over, back from Perth to Sydney, I lived in Mortdale, so in the St George area. And I joined Sutherland Sharks when I was 13. So a lot of people think that I was born and grew up in the Shire, but I just played my juniors all the way from 13 to first grade. But I grew up around the St George area.
Interesting. So no connection to Wollongong before you'd gone down to play for the Wolves?
No connection.
How have you, as someone new to the place, how have you found the town? Because they do get good crowds, and they love a winner, and they love to rally around their teams. And obviously, ever since they left the NSL, they've been crying out for something like the championship to get back on that national stage. So what are your impressions of Wollongong, the club, and Wollongong, the city, and what they are looking forward to?
Yeah, I think it's a great city. It's a good club, great culture. There's good people there. I think it's just like any team, once you start to get that success on the field, it brings more people and it brings, crowds and hype around the team. So I guess this season, sitting around the 8th spot is probably not the greatest position that the club wants to be in. But, hopefully these last 7 games we can really sort of, pick it up and get a lot of wins on the board, and hopefully they can bring more crowds because it's such a huge region down there and there's a lot of players down there. And I think that if we can sort of get to the top of the table, we can do well in the championship, hopefully I can bring more crowds and more interest to Wollongong.
Let's talk about your role on the pitch. In the games I've seen of you in person, it stands out a lot more in person than on the streams. You strike me as a bit of a Mr. Fix-It, a bit of a roaming playmaker that just goes where the game needs you. Was that just coincidence from the games that I saw you in person, or do you feel as though you have a bit of a free role as a bit of a roaming creator for wherever you are needed?
A little bit. Mr. Fix-It's funny. Since I was playing overseas, a lot of the teams I went to were sort of in relegation battles. So I guess I kind of felt like me and other players that were brought in were kind of there to try and fix it. So I guess that's a good word. You could say Mr. Fix-It. Since coming back and playing in Melbourne and playing in Sydney, it's a little bit different because playing overseas is kind of, there's a lot that's put on the foreigners, whereas here it's definitely a more, team environment. It's all about the team, not so much the individual. But I do feel like I'm more of I wouldn't say Mr. Fix-It, but game changer. I try and make sure as much as possible I'm in positions where I can affect the game, and especially going forward, try and create chances and set up players and be in the right position to score goals.
Set pieces are important too. Do you still actively train them a lot, or have you just taken so many and it's just been part of your game for so much of your career that whether it's a corner, whether it's a free kick and shooting range, whether it's a free kick where you're looking for a head, you inevitably happen to be the guy taking the set piece?
I think it's just one of the qualities I have. I've been doing it since I was so young, so it's kind of become a habit, I guess. I did go through a stage when I trained a lot for my technique, passing, crossing, shooting, all that sort of stuff. So I guess I've got that technique, and because I have that quality, I guess why not use it if I can and try and help the team.
Let's talk about your time in the A-League and also your time overseas. Forgive me for going back into ancient history. In the old National Youth League, I remember you playing for the Wanderers.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It was a game against Melbourne Heart, I think. But I thought you were quite a promising youngster. You were at Wanderers when Tony Popovich was coach. What are your memories of that time? Like every young player wants to play professionally, and you did get that taste of it, and then you ended up playing in the A-League for the Raw, sometime later. But what was it like at the Wanderers? You're a young player breaking through. I mean, at that time in your life, did you think you were heading for a professional career, or was it always just trying to claw your way towards that next little, landmark on the road to being a professional?
Yeah, look, it sort of happened quite quick. I went from making my debut at Sutherland when I was 15, turning 16. So that happened quite quick, and then I was sort of playing regularly, and then I got the call up for Wanderers for the youth team from a coach that I'd had previously, and then I sort of got chucked halfway through the youth season into the first team training full time. So everything sort of happened really, really quickly. Looking back on my time then, I was a very young player. I was 16, 17, and it was a tough environment because there was a lot of older players compared to now, where there's a lot of young players sort of getting the chances to come through. But when I was sort of in that environment, there wasn't a lot of chances for young players. So I found it tough at the time, but like looking back on it, I learned so much, especially having like Popovic as a coach. Tactically, I learned a lot from him. I think maybe just the timing of me going there in that environment was tough. It was such a successful team. But I learnt so much from it, and then I was very lucky enough that I got to get that chance again in the A-League.
And your young Socceroos coach was Paul Ocon. So when you see Popper and Paul Ocon on the sideline for the Socceroos today, like, does it make you think that happened, or is it just two guys in football? Like, how do you reflect when you see those two on the sidelines for the national team now?
I think being in football for such a long time now, it's just sort of like, I don't know, that was a part of my career, and then as you move on, it's like, oh yeah, I had them as a coach. It's very interesting in football. Things change so quickly. So for me, I guess it's just like, that's a coach that I had, and make sure that I learned something off them, because where they are now. In part of the Socceroos, obviously they're doing so well in their careers. So
let's talk about your first overseas move, Kuwait. How did that happen? Was it an agent? Was it your own initiative? Was it word of mouth or a teammate? How did it happen?
So one of my best mates, who was looking after me, Zeleny, I was at Sutherland, and I was sort of in a stage in my career where I didn't know where I was going. I was having a lot of trials with A-League clubs, but it sort of just wasn't happening for whatever reason. And I was sort of, I guess you could say I was desperate, but I was just waiting for any opportunity that could come up. And he messaged me, it was like September time, and said, look, there's an opportunity in Kuwait, you could be going in a couple of months. I was like, look, no problem, keep me in the loop, give me a heads up. And it was just after Christmas, he messaged me and said, oh, look, you're going to have to book a flight and go to Kuwait. And I was like, cool, I got nothing to lose. So I went over there, had a 2-week trial, and they liked me after the 2 weeks. And that was, I guess for me, I know I signed a professional contract when I was 16, but that was sort of the start of my professional career. And it was such a good experience, and I wouldn't have changed the opportunity I had to go there, because I think if I didn't go there, I probably wouldn't have had a chance to continue my professional career.
How many of your teammates or the coaching staff could speak English, or were you on your own over there?
Lucky enough, a lot of them, because it's quite a wealthy country, a lot of them learn in London schools and American schools, and they travel overseas to learn English. So I was lucky that they could speak English. So to assimilate there was quite easy. Also, I'm quite open-minded, so I guess the lifestyle too, being a Muslim country, it was kind of cool. I really enjoyed it. So
you got your crack at the A-League again at the Brisbane Roar. Now, forgive my recollection, I don't think the Roar were particularly strong in 21-22, and I don't recall them giving you a particularly fair go, because I was commentating A-League games that season, and I remembered you from seeing you at the Wanderers, and I thought they didn't give you a fair crack at it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
What was your experience like at the Roar? Take us inside that.
Yeah, look, football's a funny game. I was very thankful to Warren Moon, who gave me my opportunity to come back and play in the A-League. It's obviously, I guess, something for, you could say, the football bucket list. I always wanted to make sure that I played in the highest level in Australia, which I did, thankful to him. I came in there with no expectations of getting a lot of game time, but once I did start playing, I definitely felt that I was, I didn't look out of place, so I definitely felt like I cemented my position playing in the A-League. But I think, as a lot of people know, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, and with the A-League and NPL, there's always something going on, whether it's because of money or facilities, or someone else is having an opinion on who should be in the team. So look, like when I finished the season there, I really wanted to stay there, but just for one thing or another, it just didn't work out. I had a really good relationship with Warren Moon, but I maybe think his hands were tied in that sort of sense. But yeah, I'm grateful that I was able to play in the A-League.
I've only spoken to Warren very briefly, but I agree. I think he's a ripper bloke.
Yeah.
But again, maybe he didn't get a very just outcome at the Roar either.
Yeah,
to be fair.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think defensively we were quite strong when he was there, and I guess that's a coach understanding his players. We didn't have probably the strong enough team to be such an attacking team. We kind of had to be on the back foot and be defensive. But I think we had a really good structure under Warren Moon. I guess just as Brisbane Roar have been in the last 5 or so years, just not too successful in the winning department.
So next was Vietnam. And again, same as Q8. Why Vietnam? You said you were open-minded. Well, I mean, again, I don't think there'd be a single Australian footballer that has Q8 and Vietnam on their passport. So what was the story behind that one?
So Vietnam was a funny one too. I was in another sort of crossroads where I didn't know what I was doing with my career. I'd finished at Brisbane and I was kind of hanging on, waiting for something to come in. And I had an agent in Indonesia that I'd always been in contact with, and he just messaged me and said, "Hey, would you like to go to Vietnam?" Once again, my mentality was like, yeah, mate, for sure, because I haven't got anything going on in Australia, so I'm very keen to explore other options overseas. And literally as soon as I said yes, the agent from Vietnam called me straight away and said, "Hey, look, I'm with the coach. He's very interested. Can you come tomorrow?" So after being training by myself for 3-4 months, I thought, can I go tomorrow? So I called my wife and said, "Are you alright? What do you think about Vietnam?" She's like, "Yeah, Vietnam's quite nice. A lot of people go there for holiday." I'm like, "Well, they want me to go tomorrow." So that happened really quick. I went over there, and it was another situation there where it was sort of a trial, but the window was closing in a day. So I went for one session, but it was torrential rain, so there was puddles everywhere on the pitch. You couldn't even pass the ball. You had to flick it up and juggle. So I was there for one day, I had the one session, and then the agent called me and said, "Look, they want to sign you," and the rest was history there. I had a really good start there. And then I moved to another club, and unfortunately my statistics didn't follow, which is really huge in Asia and in the Middle East. That's what they really look for. And unfortunately I didn't get those statistics that they were looking for, so that kind of cut my time a bit short there.
And it's a very copycat league, isn't it? If the best team in the league has a Brazilian striker, everyone signs a Brazilian striker. I feel like Sasha Ognanovski winning the Asian Champions League meant that everyone wants an Australian centre-back, and a big one.
Yeah.
So if they follow trends, don't they?
They do.
It's a very copycat culture. If the most successful team has a player from this country in this position, we want to go and find one too.
You're exactly right. So the first season I went there was sort of a bit of a mix of players, some from France, some from England. But I guess when I was successful after that, I was getting asked by agents, "Do you have any more Australian players? We really want to bring more Australian players," because I was successful. But then that next season when I had signed, I think it was 90% players were Brazilian. So I thought, is this the Series C or something? Because there were so many Brazilians. But as you said, it's like once an individual does well, they sort of, where's he from? I guess in the Indian Super League, they always look for Australian players. And that's because Australian players are so successful there. So I guess once one player does well from a certain country, it's good because it opens doors for other players in that country. But definitely Brazilians are definitely a well sought after bunch of people. So yeah.
And after you went from Vietnam, you went to another holiday destination that is beautiful, the Maldives. How did that all come about, and why did you choose to go there?
That was sort of a spur of the moment. I was still looking for opportunities whilst I was playing in Melbourne, and opportunities came up, but they just sort of weren't, I didn't feel worth my time or worth my while in terms of the opportunity that was there. So I finished the season there, and it was the same agent that got me to Vietnam. So my friend in Indonesia, Budi, he messaged me and said, "Would you be interested in going to the Maldives?" And I said, "Yeah, not a problem. Sort of, what's it for?" And it was sort of, they've split up the AFC now, so it was sort of, I guess you could say the smaller countries have a playoff in the AFC Challenge League. And it was a 3-month contract, but it was only 3 games, and the three games were in 9 days. And that was, actually, funnily enough, it was back in Kuwait. So I went to the Maldives, and we had like a little bit of a pre-season there, because they had a bit of a funny season. They hadn't played for 18 months because of some things that happened in the federation. So their league hadn't played for 18 months, which was a bit unusual situation. But it was super cool. I got to see the country, which I've always wanted to go there. So I thought that was a good opportunity. And I knew I was going back to Kuwait, so I got to meet up with friends, and I got to play with, against some players that I had played against when I was there. So really, really cool experience. And as I said, it was just a spur of the moment opportunity that came up. And I knew that I was probably going to come back to New South Wales. So it was sort of a good little 3 months. It was off season for NPL, and for me it was just a good opportunity to challenge myself, and I guess put another thing under my belt that I played in the AFC competition.
And you said they hadn't played for 18 months, and then you came into the squad. What was that whole sorting hat moment like, trying to figure out who's got what strengths and the team coming together? What was that like?
I think it was probably more of a headache for the coach at the time, because he had been there a month prior, so he was putting them through sort of a really heavy pre-season camp. But sort of in between the players there, they had been doing a lot of like futsal soccer, like outdoor futsal. So a lot of them were keeping fit, but just in sort of a five-a-side environment, not in a team environment. So when we went to the AFC Challenge, it was definitely a challenge for us because they hadn't played in 18 months. And also, the Maldives is such a small country. It's a small country, but it's got 1,000 islands. And I was quite impressed with the talent that they had there. But at the same time, if you haven't played in 18 months and, I guess that's from the federation and they haven't set up the right base for players at a younger level to improve, then of course when you go to the bigger stage, it's sort of hard to compete with the bigger nations.
Yeah, definitely. And kind of bringing it back to home soil, like with the Wolves this year, you've been amongst the goals because it's been kind of hard because Lachlan Scott's been out for a considerable amount of time. How does that responsibility feel on your shoulders and also with the team as well?
I don't really feel like it's a responsibility as such. Just because of the culture that we have at the club, I don't feel like there's sort of a responsibility on me to score a goal or to score the winner. It's sort of just organically grown. It's hard not having Lockie there because he actually, believe it or not, like playing with him, we work well together and we help each other score goals. So it's just been a little bit difficult not having him there to have that extra player to help set up players and to score goals. But I think the environment that we've created at Wollongong, especially from my point of view, is, I put a lot of faith in the other players around me. And the reason why I'm scoring goals as well is because I've got good players around me. And as I said, we're a team and we know, if a player is in a certain position and they know that they can play it to him and he can score from there, then we do so. So it's definitely the environment that's been built at Wollongong has definitely helped me score a lot more goals, but definitely having Lockie out has been a tough one for us in terms of grabbing points.
Yeah, I can imagine. And, that culture and that environment, I can imagine, is ramping up a little bit for the championships and the road is kind of being set. How are you guys preparing for the championships?
Well, I think we're preparing more so for the finals first. But in terms of, I guess, like our loading, we are sort of having a lot of deloading weeks because we are making sure that the players are ready to fire on the weekend, but also that we have that balance that we're ready to kick on for the Australian Championship. So yeah, that's where I think that we're at the moment.
And now, something a little bit different. We want to know, what do you do outside of football? We know it's a big part of your life and a big part of your personality. So what do you do outside? What's your day job? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so since coming back from overseas, I still just focused on football when I was in Melbourne. But now since coming back to New South Wales, I sort of looked a bit more into the future, having my little one now born, who's 4.5 months old. So I wouldn't say that I'm putting away the dream of still playing and being a professional, but I've started my own coaching business, also in football. So I've invested a lot of time in trying to help young players and also elite players at that age where they sort of need that extra guidance. And I guess that experience from my side, being overseas and playing in the A-League, I have a lot of experience and I feel like I can really pass that on to players. So currently at the moment I'm with Wollongong, fully focused on that, ready for the championship, but also any time I get, I'm trying to help out all the young players out there for their future.
How do you balance the mentoring and the education with a bit of envy that you came through when the A-League was small, when opportunities were very few? There's now a bigger A-League. There's going to be the championship. But you've done some daring things with the moves in your career. So with those experiences, what message do you pass on to someone that you maybe see was in your shoes at 13, 14, 15? Everything's happening quickly. Maybe they're, about to break into first team NPL. Maybe they're getting picked for rep teams and, the dream of becoming a professional is starting to become a reality. How do you take your perspective over the last 15 years and pass it on to someone who's entering a very different landscape and one with a lot more opportunities, especially in Australia, than maybe you had at the same age?
Yeah, I think definitely more opportunities for younger players these days. The biggest mentoring thing I can say to them is there's a lot of technology now and a lot of players are sort of on that TikTok, on that Instagram, and they're seeing all these short clips and short moments, but they have to realise that it's all the work that you do behind the scenes. I know it's kind of cliche, but it's all the work that you do that people don't see. And that's where I sort of make sure and I drill into them, okay, you might do one session with me a week, but, you know, apart from your team training, you know, can you get out and do that little extra session, kick a ball against the wall? Because it's all the little details that count. And, you know, it's all those sessions you do whilst you're younger that when you get that chance in the big stage, it just becomes natural, which is super important for them. And then on the same, you know, path as that is, you know, when I was 16, okay, I got my opportunity to be part of the A-League squad. But nowadays you can be 16 and you can be starting in the A-League. So I think now the mentality for players should be that, you know, if I'm doing the right things and I'm working hard and putting in the hard yards, then, you know, they have every opportunity now in Australia to have a chance to play in the A-League and then kick on from there. I mean, the amount of players that are being sold from the A-League at such a young age, 17, 18, to go to Europe, it's such a pathway now, whereas I think when I was growing up, I felt like it was more of a pathway to go to the Indias and to the Asia, the Middle East, whereas now it's definitely a European market, which the whole mentality's changed. So I think it's super important for kids now that it's super hard to sort of not watch the TikToks and stuff and see people doing step overs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there's only 2 or 3 people of the best in the world in the top leagues that are doing step overs and Ronaldo chops, but it's all about the small details and the hard work that you put in.
Now, for small details and hard work, this is probably one of the hardest questions we have in this, is if you could choose your all-time five-a-side team of your teammates, you can't pick yourself, who would you choose?
Who would I choose? Okay, so any formation for the five-a-side?
Any formation.
All right, I'm going to go a mix from a lot of leagues. So I'll go goalkeeper, I'll go Daniel Nizic, one of my best mates. Put him in there. Safe hands.
You were teammates at Sutherland?
At Sutherland, yeah. So through our juniors, 13s to 15s before he went overseas. So I'm putting Daniel in there, safe hands. I'm going to go one defender, Jacob Tratt, my best mate too. I'm going to put him in there.
Where did you cross over with Jacob Tratt?
We played at Sutherland first grade.
Yep.
I think maybe a bit in 20s.
And he's at Oakley now, yeah.
He's at Oakley now, yeah. So we didn't play too long together, but we've just been in contact for a long, long time. We get along very well. His wife and my wife get along well. We both got little ones, so yeah, we have a really good friendship there. So definitely I'll put him in the back. I feel like I've just chosen 2 friends now. In the midfield...
Nothing, it's your team. There's nothing wrong with it.
I trust him, so I'll put him in there.
Yeah.
In the midfield, I'm going to go with Aji Dembele. I played with him in Kuwait. Rapid Spanish boy, super quick, rocket finish.
Do you know where he is today?
He's playing in Saudi, so I visited him after I was in the Maldives, so I went and had a trip there. Interesting story with him. So we played with my first club in Kuwait, and then he moved on and played there for another 4 years. Then he moved to Saudi Arabia and he played in the second division, so the one under the pro. And then when I was in the Maldives, he signed a lucrative deal in Saudi, but in the third division. So you know, we're very close and we were hanging out all the time. So I thought, you know, it'd be nice to go over and meet him and see how things are done over there. So I went over there and watched him play, and nothing had changed. If anything, he'd gotten better. So I'll definitely be putting him in there. He'd probably be a striker, but I'll put him in the midfield, versatility. Another midfield I'll put in there is Jay O'Shea from Brisbane Roar. Quality player, good in the ball, doesn't lose that much, can create chances, can score a free kick. So I'll put him in there. And then striker's a tough one. I don't know who I'd put in. Jordan Murray. I'll put Jordan Murray in. So me and him are quite close friends too.
And again, where did you cross over with Jordan?
RPA Leichhardt.
Okay,
so we played at RPA together. Yep. And then, so he scored a fair few goals when I was there, but the season I left was when he went on a rampage, I think, and scored, I don't know, it was 20 plus goals in 12 games or something. I still don't know how he did it. I was talking to him the other day. I said, like, okay, when sometimes you go in, like Euroseski, you probably go in and you know you're going to score at least a goal a game. But I said, you were scoring 2 goals a game. So you're going into every game thinking you're going to get a hat-trick. And he's like, man, anything he touched just turned to gold. So I'll put Jordan Murray out there.
It's a pretty good 5.
Not bad.
Now, there's still a lot to be done on the pitch this season. All the best for it. Looking forward to the home stretch of the NPL and also the Championship. But thank you for taking us down memory lane and talking about your backstory, because it is fascinating. Yeah. You do have, I think, one of the most interesting resumes of a professional player in the NPL. So thank you for sharing that story with us. Nick Olsen, all the best for the rest of the season. All the best to the Wolves, and thanks for jumping on Kickoff.
Cheers, thank you. Thanks for having me.
A big thanks to Nick Olsen for joining us from the Wollongong Wolves. We didn't go all the way around the world, but we certainly bounced around to different corners of the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Fascinating chat. What a great guest.
Yeah, he had so much knowledge, and definitely a Mr. Worldwide everywhere. It's such beautiful destinations, not just for holiday, but also for football as well.
Shows where the game can take you. Let's now flip it over to NPL Women's New South Wales and our next guest. Every NPL New South Wales match live, free and on demand on YouTube. Subscribe to the Football New South Wales YouTube channel today. Next up on kickoff, it's NPL Women's New South Wales, and we're going to a club that's been a fascination due to the turbulence of their season, Sydney Olympic, and speaking on their behalf today. And our guest here at Valentine Sports Park for the podcast is Chloe Gordon. Chloe, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Now, before we get into Olympic season, let's just track a little bit of your background. You've been in NPL Women's for quite some time. What clubs had you played at before Olympic, and what ended up bringing you to Olympic?
It's not something I'd love to admit, but I've been to majority of the clubs in the league. When I was in youth, I went from one team to the other. It was obviously hard to follow my sister because she was in senior football and I was in youth. But I'd been to, so I started out in Institute actually, and then I went to Marconi, and then Northbridge, when it was Northbridge, Sydney Uni, then we were at Spartans for 2 years, and then Rams for 4 years, and now Olympic.
But why Olympic? What dictated that move? Is it where you're living? Is it opportunity to play first grade? What was the reasoning behind that?
Absolutely not where I'm living, because it's about 50 minutes away from where I was, but that was typical for myself, for my family, because obviously the travel to Rams was more than that. But they believed in me, and they gave me an opportunity to play first grade on my own merit. And another thing was that our assistant from Rams went there, and he really wanted me in his team and his starting lineup. So yeah, that's why I'm there. And
I'm guessing that assistant was Pete Novakovsky?
No, it is John Maddox.
So a couple of Rams people ended up at Olympic, though, didn't they?
Yeah, Pete just joined us, Pistol Pete. He's a great addition to Olympic, yeah.
Tell us about Olympic, and I said off the top it's been a turbulent season because there's been a lot of faces, there's been a coach change, there's been a points deduction. Let's put that aside. I don't need you to talk about that. Leave that to the administrational side. But tell us about what's been going on the pitch. I mean, is it a unique season for you, or the dynamic of you start the season with one team, A-League women's players and transfers happen? Have you got used to the idea of major upheaval being part of every NPL season at around the halfway point?
Look, as you said, it's been very turbulent. We haven't really had a solid or consistent starting lineup, so it's really hard to really connect with the players that you're playing with. But in the first half of the season, we actually started decently well. We actually had a lot of draws against really good teams, and we were playing good football. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes that really affected the way that we played and our focus on what we were trying to do. But the additions that have happened in the halfway through the season has really it's really lifted everything. It's really brought a fresh start, especially with a new coach that has, he's very respected. He's very professional. I think it's brought a whole new perspective to us.
Speaking of perspectives, though, MacArthur Rams was a winning environment, a club that was on a high for a long time and sort of had expectations of winning every game they go into. What's it been like flipping that and going to a team that's battling relegation?
I'll be honest, it's been very hard for me personally. I haven't been in an environment or a squad like that for years. I mean, even when I was at Spartans with Stephen Peters, we were up there, we were in finals. So it was really difficult for me personally to deal with the, let's say, not as great season, but I feel like I definitely kept my head strong and just knew that there were changes coming and hoping for the best. But I think being in Rams, we weren't always on a high. We had a lot of ups and downs, especially behind the scenes, and they were things that we had to deal with personally and with each other behind the scenes. So that really prepared me for anything that happened after Rams. Like, we all knew that we were going out, like pretty much everyone went to a different team. So we all knew that it was going to be different. So it was pretty much just preparing for that.
We love to have the guests in off the back of a big win. I hate it when we have a guest in and then we get to the weekend and they lose because we feel like we've jinxed them. But we don't really have a choice here. I mean, because the season has been a bit up and down. But you've talked about the challenge that entails. But what's been enjoyable about Olympic? I mean, you made a point of mentioning that they headhunted you and they wanted you to come and play for them on your merits. So have you felt fulfilled by that move and have you enjoyed the experience of going into that new environment?
I have actually. I feel like I've been able to have an opportunity to find myself as a player. Obviously at Rams and being with Stephen and Bethany, it was very much the same for a few years and I didn't really know how I could personally be. So it was great to feel like another club or other people like recognised me and to have the opportunity to like flourish as myself, and they really encouraged me, they really supported me. And they really helped me to be the best I could. So I think it's been a great change for me, personally.
Yeah. And you've been at the club from the start and to now. So what would you say is a major difference from back then to present day?
Okay, so even since pre-season, so George is now our third coach. So not a lot of people know that just before round one, our coach left us, and then so that was pretty much a huge difference with our new coach, and I think we actually dealt with it pretty well at that time. But then it got to a point where there were a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and that really rattled us. But I think we all knew that around the halfway mark that there would be positive changes, and I think George really pushed to give us the best opportunity that we could. I think we've really gone with it and we've really dealt with it positively. And like there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference in the way that everyone trains, in the way that we play, in our like faith in each other, our trust in each other. Yes, the A-League players really added a lot to us, but also the girls that were there originally, we really lifted, and we tried to get to their point. And I think that's made a huge difference.
Now, you've mentioned a name a couple of times, and we haven't put it in context for the listeners that may not know, your sister Bethany.
Oh, yeah.
So it's always tough for siblings to be looked at through the lens of the sister of, and that's why that's why I wanted to start with some questions about you, and then we can talk about your family.
Yeah, sorry.
I know of Bethany from the A-League Women's, and obviously she's now playing in the NPL at Spirit. Mm-hmm. But were you two just like football best buds all the way through, and this is the first time you've actually branched out and gone to different teams? Or were there other times in your careers where you were on different teams and sort of apart from each other, rather than, kind of a package deal, peas in a pod?
So our whole youth, we were in different teams. So it was actually really different for us to be together and be in the same squad. I am 2 years younger, so obviously it's difficult to create that gap because she was in seniors very early in her career. But yeah, we ended up being together at Spartans in 2018, 2019, and then been with each other ever since last year. But there are ups and downs playing with each other. I mean, obviously the typical sister butt heads, but we really supported each other the most. Like, we really needed each other in the time that we were together. We're really honest with each other. We can tell each other when we play bad, when we're good. She definitely has a reputation of her attitude, so I think she appreciated that I was there to kind of keep her cool.
You would have had a first-hand, or been the first person she would have spoken to after a lot of the challenges, though. I remember, she had a little nibble at Canberra, out of the league, and then she came back for Newcastle and injured her. And I was commentating the game when she injured her knee in her very first game back. Yeah. And at that point, you've played 3 games. It's taken you 4 years to play 3 games. And you think you might have done your ACL. You think it might be over. how much emotional support and how much of your football has sort of been living vicariously through her with the emotional support you've had to give her with her various challenges over her career? Because I feel as though now she's an established A-League player, and it was always going to happen once her body allowed her to get a fair go at it. But there must have been points there where she must have felt like her body wasn't going to allow that to happen.
Yeah, look, to be honest, she's probably the most strong-headed person like you'll meet. I think you can see it on the pitch. I mean, she sometimes lets it get to her, but she definitely needed a lot of support. But also, I had done my ACL before her. So she did her MCL, I did my ACL, and I think we really bounced off each other. She really asked me for help. And she was my biggest supporter when I had my knee injury, so then I was in turn her biggest supporter. And when she was down about it, we just reminded her, like, if I can come back from my ACL, you can come back from your MCL and you'll be fine. And she did. She made a great recovery. Like, she had hardly any setbacks. She was great, but she definitely needed that emotional support that sometimes she doesn't feel like she needs. But I think it was definitely important to have me there, like myself and my family there throughout that time. Because then she also had her shoulder surgery. She had a reconstruction on her shoulder. And I think that was before her MCL. I think so. I'm not sure. But so that was a big thing for her as well, because she didn't feel like her shoulder would ever recover from that, because it's a huge surgery. And even now, I mean, it's been a while since then. That was when she was at Wanderers. And she still struggles with it. But she's definitely learnt to find some emotional support and support from people around, even in football, whereas before she wouldn't.
Yeah, and now coming back to you, do you personally have any aspirations of playing in the A-League?
I do.
Tell us about that.
I think almost everyone that plays NPL first grade, I think that's their aspiration, that's their goal. But I think ever since I had my ACL injury in 2023, it's really shifted my perspective. And although I really want to strive to get there, I'm also at the point where I'm like, I also do need to enjoy where I'm at and be grateful where I'm at, because a lot of people don't make first grade. Like, you see it all the time. People are really striving to make first grade and some people don't, so I'm grateful to be where I am. But I have had some opportunities. Unfortunately, my ACL took some of those away, and it was really difficult. I only returned last year. It was really difficult to get in that physical form that I needed to get into. But yeah, I'm just taking it as it goes now, just being grateful where I am.
Yeah, definitely. And for the 2025 season and the rest of it, what are Olympics objectives going forward?
Really with George, he's a huge part of it, and he really focuses on just playing football. He really wants us to play football, even if we're down. He doesn't want us to resort to the easy option of a lot of teams. They do a bit of kick and chase, but his main goal is to play football, and I think we really try and do that. It's just trying to climb the ladder as much as we can. We still are in relegation zones, so that's really the main focus, to stay off the bottom.
Given the broad perspective you've got, both of the NPL with the clubs you've played for, the geography, the travel, your perspective on the A-League with a family member that's been in and out of multiple different A-League clubs over a number of years. If you could just like change something, you could have a big solution to ease the burden. What do you think the big burdens are for women's players, and what solutions would you look to? Because you've got a pretty broad perspective on the various challenges that people face. What comes to the top of your list is the number one thing that needs to be fixed, and if you had free rein to fix it, what would you do?
If I had free rein, I think a huge hindrance on A-League players, especially the women's, is how much they get paid. It's a huge burden on some players, because like they're all in their 20s and not all of them can have the opportunity of like living with their parents and having everything like that. So if I could fix it, I would give them the money that they really deserve. Also, in turn, it's obviously the revenue that they pull in, so we can't really do a lot about that. It has improved, but I think a stress factor is like how worth it is for them, because a lot of them also need to have a career, and it's hard to balance even in NPL sometimes, like I find it hard as well to train and put in as much effort as I can, because I do have a 9-to-5 job, so it's hard.
What is that job, if you're willing to share?
I'm a childcare educator, so I'm in the 0 to 2s room, so I take care of 8 babies a day. So it's a bit stressful, but it's rewarding.
And I mean, we speak to a lot of players that are in the demographic of they're in their 20s. The NPL satisfies their need for competitive high-level football, whether they were in the A-League, whether they're still aspiring to go back, whether they're kind of at a point where NPL is as good as it's going to get. I mean, to take the previous question I asked and extend it to the NPL, is there much you would change about the NPL environment, again, if you had free reign to use your perspective to try and solve a problem? Or is it just, that's life, it's the balance of football and work and, the tug of war between all of them?
Yeah, look, I think a big thing I would change, especially about the women's, is having more facilities to actually make it more of a semi-professional environment. I mean, some clubs, like let's say Apia and Sydney Uni, they have the gyms there, they train early mornings 3 or 4 times a week, but some clubs just don't have those facilities, so you actually can't get the best out of your team that you can. Like, there should be more opportunity for that, and that's personally what I would change, because I'm someone that really wants to do that, and I know that there's other people in teams that want to do that. Some people do it for, like, they really enjoy it and they enjoy it as it is, but then some people also want to strive for more, and I feel like that's something that a lot of clubs and a lot of teams don't have, or don't give the opportunity for that.
It's good to hear it from the players themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And, speaking of opportunity, right now as we're filming this, we have the Emerging Matildas Championships happening right now. How important is the NPLW competition, and what role does that play in, like, female footballer development, do you think?
I think it's pretty evident that there's a clear pathway, especially with the NPL New South Wales, to the A-League and to even further than that. So I think even with like these competitions, and the future Matildas and all those type things, I think it's really important to recognise that also with the A-League, like there was like 70 to 80 girls that returned to NPL New South Wales, and I think that's so important to look at for even young girls going, okay, I really want to strive to make it into first grade, because that can open up so many other avenues, because people go from our league to overseas. They go from our league to the A-League, especially every single year there's girls getting signed from our league, and people come from across the country, people come from other countries. Actually, we have a few internationals in our league, and a lot of people coming from interstate, and I think that's something that people overlook. Like, I think people don't see that that's a clear pathway to going further in your career.
And now, one of the most important and highly regarded segments of our show is your dream five-a-side team. You can pick anyone of all time, but you can't pick yourself.
And they have to have been teammates of yours.
Yes. Who would you pick?
Okay. Well, I've played with quite a few players.
So you've got plenty to choose from.
I've got plenty to choose from. I mean, absolutely no bias, but of course I'd pick Bethany Gordon. Not that she told me to pick her or anything, but even like unbiased, I think she has a huge presence in the NPL and in the A-League, and I think that's so important to have. She has something that not a lot of other players have. And I'd also, of course, pick Mel Caceres. She's just something else. I don't know what you can even pick about her, but she is just something else.
Was MacArthur the only place you've been teammates? You weren't teammates anywhere else? Just MacArthur?
Just MacArthur. Yeah. She was at Sydney Uni as well with Bethany. But yeah, when we came over, and she's just been great. Like, yeah.
That's 2. Give us 3 more. Who's your goalie?
Oh, my goalie has to be Sham Karmas. It just has to be. She has pulled us from the bottom to the top. She is great. I think she needs more recognition than what she has at the moment. It's got to be her. Not that I'm like just picking Rams players, but really, I mean, we won 3 years in a row, so we got to have some good players, I guess. And another player would be, I actually played with Cara Cooney-Cross at Spartans, so I would pick her. I mean, she's just class. She's very strong.
It was an interesting time in her life because I believe that's the first time she'd been living out of home
Yes.
when she moved to Sydney.
Yeah, and she was very young. She was my age.
Now,
yeah.
she was already a phenomenal player when she came to Sydney.
Yeah.
And, we've seen, Mary Fowler, Matilda at 15, Kyra. She had to wait until she was 19. And I say wait until she was 19. She could have been in earlier.
Yeah.
What are your recollections of her then versus what you see now?
Honestly, she's actually been pretty like her attributes that she had back then, they've just accelerated. Like she's so smart, she's so strong. I think she's just now progressed into the player that they need her to be. But back then it was definitely she was kind of just travelling, finding her place in the football world, I guess. So yeah.
One more.
Lucky last.
I've got to go with centre back because they're all attacking players. So I've got to go with Renee Rollison. She was at Rams with us, and she just brings something different. She was our top goal scorer, just clearly out of headers. So I think you have to have it in a team, especially women's. A lot of players are afraid to header the ball, so she was not, and she just brings a lot of experience. So yeah, I think that's my team.
It's a good team. Chloe, you've got an amazing depth of knowledge and passion for football. It's come through so strongly in this chat. Thank you for letting us roam with the conversation to the various aspects and challenges of what the game presents, and thank you for your insight.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad to share my perspective. It's really hard to really get much out there.
No.
There's not many avenues.
Good, and I say this in a completely impartial manner.
Yes.
Good luck to Sydney Olympic for the rest of the season.
Oh, thank you.
And that is in no way favouritism, of course. You're in a very tense relegation battle, but
Yes.
I do wish you all the best. Good luck.
Thank you.
So that was Chloe Gordon from Sydney Olympic. Really appreciate a player in the midst of a relegation battle as well coming to join us. It's always easy to talk to guests when their teams are flying and they win more than they lose. But Chloe was a great sport, and it was great to see her in here.
Definitely. She has so much humility and is very genuine about, her own respective journey, her sisters, and also for the clubs that she's played at as well. She just has so much knowledge, and I really enjoyed speaking to her.
And good luck just trying to pick a winner in NPL Women's. The league title race is as wide open as any. I actually genuinely think on the final day of the home and away season, we're going to have teams that kick off where they can win the title if they win and get favourable results, but they can miss the top four and be eliminated with a loss and an unfavourable result. I really do think it's that close that it could be everything or nothing on the very last day of the season.
Yes, I think so too. It will be a nail biter no matter where you are, especially for that race.
So that's NPL Women's New South Wales. Up next, it's our league's focus.
Day after day, Kappa rewrites the concept of sportswear. Kappa means teamwork, past, present, and future. Kappa never stops, 'cause winning starts within. 2 people, 1 brand. Kappa.
Now on kickoff, it's time for our leagues chat, and in this edition we'll focus on League One men's. It's a red-hot battle for promotion, and one of the teams that is right in the thick of it is the University of New South Wales. Joining us is their captain, and in this context, it is very different to how you would normally see him in football media. Claudio Fabiano. Claudes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I was saying when I walked in, it's a nice change of pace for me. I like being the guest for once. It's different. There's a lot less preparation, as you know, compared to when you're producing or hosting a podcast. So this is fun.
When Mark Stavroulakis, the producer of this podcast, put your name on the rundown, I thought, you know what? It's fitting, because for those of listeners that don't know, I used to produce for Claudes on the Optus Sport, RIP, on the Optus Sport podcast a couple of years ago. So we've come full circle. You are our guest now. It's a pleasure to have you. Before we jump too much into you, though, and believe me, we will, I want to talk about University of New South Wales, because tell us about this team this season and what your club's ambitions are and what you stand for, because League One is a meat grinder of a league. It's a season of attrition. I think it's as challenging and difficult a league as any top tier in any state. So take us inside UNSW. How's the season you've had? Is it meeting your expectations, exceeding? And tell us a bit about your club.
It's a very unique club. I don't think there's another club like UNSW in the league system, all the way from NPL down to League 2, and that's men and women, because it's a unique culture. It's come such a long way in 5 years. I think most people wouldn't have heard of UNSW when it comes to competitive football 5 years ago. They didn't have a youth grade or anything. So to now be in the conversation potentially of promotion to the NPL is a big deal for the club. And they're riding this wave, and the support that we have from the staff, from the university as a major sponsor to try and make it happen is huge as well. That's why it happens. But yeah, the group of players, we believe it. We won League 2, not last season, the one before. And I think last season, a few players believed, but I think there's always that thought of, let's just see what the level's like. I don't think anyone really wholeheartedly went into last year with the ambition to challenge. But we finished in the top half, which was not a bad result for newly promoted. And this year, from the start, we wanted to go big. We lost some key players, unfortunately, early on, from the first day of pre-season to serious injuries, to personal matters, having to go back overseas. We lost 6 players across the season. So we just had to hold in there, but we've added in the window, and yeah, we've earned the right to play these big games now. I think we're sitting in 3rd spot, a couple of points off those positions you want to be in. And yeah, it really is anyone's. Like you said, it's a crazy league. I think 2 weeks ago we looked at the table and the whole top 8 could potentially win it. That was 2 weeks ago. So it's just so close. You don't know, and because it's the only league where you can get promoted and you can get relegated, there's no easy games, because you get towards the end of the season, that whole bottom 4 or 5, they are just as hard to play as the top 5. So it's really exciting, and it's anyone's game, I'd say.
The venue, Village Green.
Yeah.
I think it's in a beautiful part of town. For those that haven't played there or don't know, it's next to the Randwick Racecourse. It's next to NIDA. So every Australian actor who's anyone in the country would know where the Village Green is. It's a beautiful ground to play at. Impossible ground to get a parking spot at. Let's leave that aside. But is that part of the attraction of UNSW, just where it is? It's in Randwick. It's in a really nice part of Sydney. How many players are actually like active students, or is it just like any other club that just happens to play out of the university campus?
No, you're exactly right. It's the attraction of, you're playing in Kensington, you're 5 minutes from the beach, 10 minutes from the city. We've got a really good culture there. We pride ourselves particularly on the culture that we've built in this men's first grade team, where it's like we all make an effort to be very good friends, so that you love coming to training. In the middle of winter when it's cold, you don't want to be there. It helps coming to a really cool culture. So we have dinners every week after Thursday training. There's lots of things for new players to get involved, and of course lots of fun that happens in the change rooms of all the NPL clubs with fine systems and the rest. So it's a great culture to be a part of. And you're right that we have a good opportunity for students studying at the uni, where you can not only get paid to play football, but you can get a scholarship on your university degree as well. So we have some students in the club, a few in the women's game as well, and in our under-20s. So that's a really exciting thing, and that's why I think this club can be bigger than anything else, because I think of my own issues that I had growing up as a teenager, and if there was a club playing at the highest level where you knew you could get a degree as well, it'd be a no-brainer. You'd want your kid to play there. 17, 18, 19, you got a good backfall in case something goes wrong, which so often it does with injuries and the rest. So I got no doubt that with the right investment and the right players, this club can be easily the biggest club in the state.
And you've been at the club for a number of seasons now. How would you say that you've seen it change from when you first started there to now? And do you have any highlight showreel moments that you're super proud of that you want to mention?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's almost unrecognizable, because in 2020 I started being involved in the club. I wasn't playing yet. I was recovering from a serious injury. But in 2021 I started playing. And you got to think, at the time there was no youth. So it was only 20s and first grade. That was across men and women. We didn't have boys and girls. We didn't have a home ground, so we were renting home grounds. There was no real structure of the club. You didn't know who was above the coaches. We didn't have technical directors, physiotherapists, and the rest. In this time, the club, kind of told us their ambition and that they were very close to signing this off. The Village Green was turned from a cricket oval to a football ground. We moved into our permanent home. Every player has full access 24/7 of the gym, the pool, the sauna of the university facilities. A great physio team, youth has been brought in, they come to our games. So the place is unrecognisable from 2020 to 2025. It's just changed completely. And you asked for like a proud moment. We got promoted, we won, League 2, but on top of that, last year we played a game at home. It was in the Oz Cup against Marconi. And I grew up in Marconi as a teenager. So to be captain of UNSW against Marconi at home at the Village Green, our new ground, best crowd I've played in front of at the Village Green so far. All the youth came with all their family. We lost in the 96th minute. Marconi ended up, they were first, they won the league. We lost to a penalty Temelkovski scored at the very end of the game. But besides that, it was just such a good experience to see where UNSW was when I walked in And to see now that we're hosting Marconi at home till the last minute in front of a great crowd in a football purpose built inside the university, it was awesome. It was so proud for me, and I know it was proud for a lot of the people that have worked hard at that club, just to give you a glimpse of where it's heading. So really cool experience, and hopefully many more days like that to come for them.
Definitely, it would have been such a surreal moment to have everyone there, and the atmosphere, I can imagine, would just be electric. And for this season, you know, you are fighting for promotion. What would that mean for you and also for the club as well?
It'd be huge. We spoke a bit about it ahead of the season. We had a meeting with all our goals, which we do every year, and we're very honest with each other about where we think we're at and what we want to achieve. And you know, part of what was said was when you play for these other clubs in the pyramid, like Marconi, Olympics, and United, they're great clubs, they're historic clubs, and often they value their current crop of players, but you hear so much. I spent many years there. You hear so much about the glory days, you know, the NSLs, and did you know these Socceroos played here and this and that. At UNSW, it's an opportunity to actually be a little bit of the golden age because they haven't played at that level before. So what we're doing, we've already gone from NPL 4, which doesn't exist, to 3, now to 2. And so the chance to go up one more to the highest level possible, yeah, you feel like you're doing something that hasn't been done before, and you're actually being part of that team that might be spoken about one day. So it would mean a lot to the club because, as I said, you know, they want to attract good youth players. And to do that, the first grade need to be playing at the highest level. The women did it 2 years ago. They got to the NPL and they're doing a good job too. So we want to join them. And so if we can have men and women both playing at the highest tier, then we're a serious club and we can go on to the next level. I don't think uni just want to stop there. I actually think their ambitions are huge. When you go into these meetings and you hear what they want to do, I don't think people realize that UNSW have the ambition to be, you know, potentially maybe even at the national level of football. So, but for now, promotion would mean the world, of course. And to me as a player, I stopped playing a few years ago, so I didn't ever think that I'd be back playing in this system, let alone back in the NPL again. So that would be pretty special, but still a long way to go. Big 7 weeks.
Let's talk about some of the players that are making it happen. I recognise Nathan Roberts' name from having played in first grade for a couple of clubs for a couple of seasons. Obviously, Connor Quilligan's a pretty important player from what I do know about the team, as is Thomas Quilligan as well. But tell us about who's making it happen on the pitch this season and what's brought success and so many more wins than draws and losses to your club so far.
Well, I mentioned before about some of our key players being out. So what's been so impressive is players playing out of position and some of the under-20s boys coming up and doing a real good job in first grade. Gil Duffy got his debut, teenager, and he was an Apia youth boy, but he's now with us. He's had a great impact. On the weekend, we had a 17-year-old goalkeeper, Cassius Flavel, as well. He had to fill in for our suspended first grade keeper, and he did a great job, kept a clean sheet. So that's been so impressive. And the unsung hero, probably because of maybe his lack of CV, would be Corby Fowler in the midfield for us. So he's a top young player. Like, he's still in his early 20s. He dominates games single-handedly. He's so fit. He's so strong. And he's kind of like that player that flies under the radar. Like you mentioned, you know, Nathan Roberts, Connor Quilligan, these guys that have done very well in NPL as well. Corby hasn't, but he's probably been our strongest player in midfield. And I've seen him come up against, you know, players that are in our league that have A-League experience and the rest, and he's just shone above them because he's so fit. And so, yeah, he's been a key player for us.
You get a bit of everything in League One.
Yeah.
You get the professionals at MacArthur and Newcastle that are in their academy. You talk about that NSL history. You get that with your Bonnie Riggs and your Hakoas. What has sort of been the moment during the course of the season where the penny dropped and the whole group was bought in? Did it start in pre-season that, you know, this team was onto something special, or was there a result that was a real proof of concept that you were contenders?
I think we had to realise that we could do it without those key players that we were banking on in pre-season, and so results were mixed early on. But we had a game where we were playing Southern District's SD Raiders away. It was a catch-up game on a Tuesday night. And they, you know, were top of the league. And as you know, they did really well. They're in the final 32 of the Oz Cup. They're doing a great job. Really good club. And that game, they could have gone 11 points ahead of us with a win. So we said to each other in the change room, we said, literally, the season's on the line today. If we're serious about anything, we have to beat them today and beat them convincingly. And we did. We went out, we beat them convincingly. And that, unfortunately, I think maybe affected them because they've dropped a fair few points since then. But that really, that just shot our season to another level where we thought, okay, we can beat the highest teams in this ladder. And that's never been a problem for us at UNSW. We've always stepped up against first, second, third. We did it last year against Mount Druitt, against Bulls, against Alcoa, against the whole top three. Our issue is, staying consistent against the bottom half of the table when we have a little bit more ball and just staying patient. But that was a big result for us. A cold Tuesday night at SD Raiders to get that win, I think that really made us believe that we could do something cool.
Are you a bit envious of both Raiders and Tigers getting to the round of 32? It's been a good year for League One teams in the Cup. For starters, Tigers made the final as well, and now these two teams, they get their shot on the national stage. UNSW, you've talked about the ambition. I guess prioritising promotion is number one, but you'd love a cup run to come at some point to the round of 32, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'd be fun. I experienced one with St George from this league a few years back. But, when Tigers or SD were playing in that competition, we had their jerseys on. We were going for them because more football is a good thing. You know what I mean? I hope they prioritise that competition. I hope they go all the way to the final. I would love them to go all the way to the final at Combank Stadium. That would make me very, very happy if it meant that they rested players on the weekend in our league. So.
Let's talk about your football, because you are the captain of this team. I follow UNSW social, so I see the team sheets drop. I see the results come in. Whoever's doing, by the way, pass on my best to whoever's doing social media for the club, because the graphic design's beautiful. But where's your game at? Because when we first met, I think you mentioned that you'd played top tier first grade at Sutherland, I think it was. And, you were taking some time away from football due to, injury, but what got you back to football, and where do you see your game at now?
Yeah, it's interesting. Growing up, I played so much football across Olympic and Marconi was most of my youth development, and a little bit overseas. And yeah, you're right. I was playing in the NPL competition with Sutherland, but already at that point, I'd had a few knee surgeries and I'd had 2 hip surgeries. The second one while I was at Sutherland as well. It wasn't getting any better. I had a really degenerative hip, so I had no cartilage left in the hip. Had a permanent limp, had leg shortening, had all these things. And I only realized in my early 20s that now this is affecting the rest of my life. When I was trying to start a career and work full time, I realized I couldn't. I had pain every day. I'd wake up with pain. So I made the decision to stop playing football, and I did a lot of research as to, my doctors told me you're going to need a hip replacement in your 20s. Well, if I'm going to have that, I need to try and find the best one possible. So I put a lot of research, and I managed to get on an international trial for a new hip joint. And I was in the first 100 to get that done. And I didn't, I'd heard that this was ceramic on ceramic. It was a new style of technology. You'd be back to doing sports, but I didn't think I'd be back to playing football at this level. So after 2 years out, Gabe Knowles, who's still our coach now at UNSW, I was a student at the uni, so he knew me. And he invited me down. He just said, come kick about. 2 of your best friends are signing with us. Just come see how you feel. And I took it more as a training to just get back into it. But of course, like anything, you can't take that passion away. And when you start getting through a session and you don't have pain, it's like I couldn't remember the last time I felt that. So I was getting addicted again. And I'd come down and train more, and they offered me a deal. And yeah, that's it. One thing led to another. I'm still here 4 years later playing.
And you've had a very, personally, a very interesting football career outside of also UNSW as well. Talk us through where you started and what led you to where you are now.
Yeah, I started, I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. I played for the old, we used to have the Metro League where you had to play for your area. So I played for the eastern suburbs up until 12. And then I went into Sydney Olympic for 4 years. And at that point, I was, playing up an age, and I was feeling quite confident, 16. So I had an opportunity to go over to a Bundesliga youth side. So I spent some time in Germany at that age. And when I got back to Australia, things had changed across the leagues and at Olympic and everything. My coach was gone. Everything was very different. So I needed a new club, and that's when Marconi reached out. And I spent 3 really cool years there. Unfortunately, I had 2 major surgeries while I was at Marconi, so I had a lot of time out. But whenever I played well. They always opened the door to Sydney FC for me through Steve Corica and Robbie Stanton at the time. So they always helped me further my career. I met some of my best friends at Marconi. I've experienced first grade for the first time at Marconi. And then because their first grade side got relegated, I don't know if you remember when Marconi went down. And so 5 of us moved across to Sutherland. And then I had a couple great years there as well. They really, gave me that consistent start in first grade. At 19 for a centre-back is not easy to get. And they trusted me. Carlos Villason was the coach at the time. He trusted me every week, and it was going really good until I did my ACL against Sydney United, and that set me back a bit, and everything else happened after that with the hip. But but I had a couple of really good years there, and I'm really happy to see what they've done at Sutherland Sharks now with the club, because the culture's always been there, the community's always been there, so it's nice that they're really highlighting that, and that Seymour Shore is a really cool place to go now and watch football. I haven't been to the new Seymour Shore because we're always playing around the same time, but when we're not playing at the same time, I really want to go watch a game there. And yeah, hopefully, it'd be great to play there again for UNSW. But that was it really. And then I had a year at St George FC as well. But at that point, I was hanging on by a thread. Wally Savall was the coach. He gave me a go. He knew me from growing up. And at that point, I decided to stop for a bit and focus more on the media side of football, which has been great for me because when football's not going well on the field, you can start to hate it a little bit, which I did. And I didn't really want to think much about football. But because of the media side and interviewing and having these amazing opportunities that I get through my work, I started to love it again. So then when I could play again, I felt that I didn't have that, that pressure on myself or that anger towards it. I could just play and just use playing football as an outlet of just fun. And I still feel that way now. Like my career, my job is one thing, and playing is just fun for me. And I think that's why I'm still going.
Let's flip it to the media side of things.
Yeah.
Thank you for the detail about your career. I think a lot of people who only know you as a media personality would not appreciate the sacrifices, literally the physical sacrifices you've made to keep playing the game. I mean, I wasn't a good player. When I did my knee at 17, it was over. And I came back to play cricket. I tried to come back to play football. I still iced my knee. But I was never good enough, so it doesn't really matter. But I wanted to ask about, balancing sort of being a public figure and playing football, because people might know you from SBS where you host a weekly show. They might know you from Optus Sport where you were very prominent. Obviously, you were the main anchor for the Euros coverage. Don't let me sell you short if there's something I've missed. Many younger people would know you from your social media presence as well, because I think you've been one of the first actors and one of the great innovators in that space, building a following in football. And trust me, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who wish they had your following and are following you. Don't underestimate the influence you might have had there.
Thanks.
But I wanted to ask about how you balance that against also the very real experience of just being a player out there on the pitch. I don't want to say the name of this former Socceroo, but I had a former Socceroo tell me about how he went back to just play with mates at not even an NPL level, at a suburban level, and he would attract hecklers over the fence. And just because he had a public profile, he would get abuse, and it actually caused him to stop playing because he felt as though he was a burden on his family who were coming to games with him because they were horrified at some of the shit that was being yelled at him. I mean, how have you found that balance? I guess, do most people just, play you on your merits like any other opponent? Do some people try to use it to their advantage? Are other people starstruck when they play against you? Tell us about the balancing act between having that profile and then all of a sudden someone might be, you might be marking a centre forward and then he goes, hey, shit, I was watching your show on SBS, just during the week. I didn't realise it was you.
Yeah. It's a real mix, and I find usually the players are really cool. I've copped it from fans occasionally, especially those away trips. Certain clubs in our league get some pretty good support, and they'll pick on that and they'll go for that. But players are usually pretty cool, and even when I do cop a bit of a heckle from the fans, I enjoy it, to be honest. I think it's just part of my character. I like that side of it. It's never gone overboard. I've never felt unsafe in any way. Just good banter. From players, they usually maybe sometimes try it at the start of the game, but I think players usually quite respect the fact that I just when I'm playing football, I'm just another player like everyone else. I'm actually, to be honest, a little bit more on the aggressive side, the way I play the game. Probably not really how I present myself on TV. I think I'm a bit of a different personality when I play, and I think players respect that. And I actually had a player during the Euros last year. People were watching me in the middle of the night live, and I had a player on the field then after I'd hosted that morning. Just literally, I was marking him. He just said, I'm not going to repeat. He was, swore a bit, but he was just like, mate, I don't know how you do it. He's like, I respect you. I was watching you this morning. He's like, I went to sleep after watching that game and you're here. And I was like, yeah. So a lot of them do respect that. And, I think they respect the fact that I still want to get dirty and do the hard stuff, which is playing football. You don't get anything handed to you when you go out on that field. So I think they respect the fact that I'm still trying to play at the highest level I possibly can and get down and dirty, and the fact that I'm the captain of the club. So it's majority respect from an on-field point of view, and a couple of heckles off the field, but that's always fun.
A lot of people want to talk about the football media landscape in such a negative tone. I guess, you and I have been lucky enough to be in a position where we can do something proactive about it. Even something like this podcast is doing something proactive about just trying to grow the pie, grow the profile, grow the game. I mean, what perspective has it given you about some of the challenges the game faces, knowing that you can actually have a practical hands-on effect on, spreading the good word, getting the message, whether it's elite level, whether it's NPL level, whether it's, the A-Leagues or national teams or something in between, because you basically have, a foot in many camps. But the reality is you do that because you have to in this game. You just got to, any chance you get to amplify and celebrate what the game does. I think you are one of the people that, is exceptional at doing that because you're very versatile across the platform. So what perspective has it given you on just the game broadly in this country to have the roles that you do?
It's really hard. Yeah, anyone that is involved in the game knows it's a difficult task, especially when you look at a higher level. It doesn't get the exposure that it should. It doesn't get the funding that it should. We know all that. But I think it's so unique, and it's a very unique culture at all levels that should be celebrated. Right now, I've got my uncle here from overseas. He's grown up in Spain, Italy, Germany. He's currently living in Austria. He's a football fanatic, and he came to watch our game on the weekend against Inter Lions, and he was quite impressed with the standard, because even what's so unique about this podcast that you guys are doing, you're doing a podcast on a semi-professional football league, but it's the second tier in the country. And so people are often quite impressed with the level of semi-pro football here, because in some of the elite European countries, to get to semi-pro, you might go 5-6 divisions down. Whereas in Australia, you're just in the second division. So you're getting players dropping from the A-League, you're getting emerging A-League talents playing in your semi-pro tier. I'd go as far to say it's one of the best semi-pro leagues in the world in comparison. It has to be, because we only have one professional league. So it's a unique football culture that needs to be celebrated. It's not everyone's cup of tea because it's not the same as anything else. The A-League is a franchise system that's kind of like America, but then the NPL is a promotion relegation system kind of like Europe. It doesn't quite fit in any box, but it is unique and it should be celebrated. And I see it as I grow and expand through my career and I meet people and talk to people around the world. And I just, in casual conversation over a beer, talk about football in Australia or my journey. They're so interested in it. They can't believe it. Even the history of these clubs, I've had people from England mention South Melbourne because they've heard Ange Postecoglou talk about it. They can't believe that it was like, they find it so fascinating that it was a community for Greek immigrants to get together and go. They feel that should be celebrated. They find it so unique. So, sometimes I think we're quick to judge our own game more than the rest of the world would, and that's from an A-League level, NPL level. Sometimes, I don't know if it's an Australian culture, we're quick to talk ourselves down when we shouldn't. We shouldn't, because we've got something pretty unique and pretty special here. And the more I get to work on the best leagues in the world, the more I see that what we have is pretty cool, and we should celebrate it more. So it's great, more podcasts like this, more media exposure, like you said, more creators trying to go and create content. There's no problem with it because more amplification of our game is a good thing. So yeah.
One last one on this particular topic. It's funny you talk about people get so tunnel vision. A-League fans hate Euro snobs that ignore the A-League. And they perhaps don't appreciate that on any given weekend I might commentate an A-League game, work at Optus editing a mini match of the Premier League, and then go and commentate NPL on Sunday. Like, it is actually, I think it's more where people find you that they make assumptions, and they perhaps wouldn't appreciate that you've given your body and your heart and your soul to the NPL level of the game in this country, and they might say, oh, you're a Euro snob, you ignore this and that, and but I think it's nice to have this chat so people can actually understand, no. Everyone has an appreciation for all the levels of the game in this country, and there's no point putting any of them down. You just have to grow the pie.
Exactly.
The real enemy is Netflix and video games.
Yeah.
then it's the other sports.
Yeah.
And then we can worry about fighting with each other, and we shouldn't be. Anyway, that's not really a question. It's my two cents on it.
It's 100% right. We're often just way too divided, and we shouldn't be. And I'm glad you brought that up. I don't read too much into it, but some people think because I work on European football, I'd love to work on the local game. It's my favorite thing to work on because you can actually go and speak to the players and go to the live matches. There's nothing like live football. Watching the best leagues in the world is cool from the comfort of your own bedroom. It is cool, but going down to a match and experiencing it is different. Whether it's NPL, whether it's club level, there are some really cool community clubs that play even underneath the semi-pro levels that can give you a really cool Sunday out to go watch football. So, I think it's so important that and I'm glad you brought that up because I grew up in these tiers and I grew up both in the A-League youth and in the NPL divisions. And I love it. It should be celebrated. People got to go down to their local game.
Before Maeve wraps us up with our final quickfire round, you dropped one little nugget in one of your earlier answers, which I have to circle back to. The ambition of UNSW.
Yeah.
Do they want to go to the Australian Championship? If everything fell into place, best case scenario, say 3 to 5 years' time, if the trajectory continues, is that maybe gently where the club would love to be one day?
You know, I hope one day I'm in the position to be able to help make those decisions. For now, I'm just a player. I've told them my ambition after playing, what it would be at that club. Possibly. I don't know. You know what's another thing we do that's really cool? There's a committee and we have representation of all our squads on it. So I represent the men's team on the committee. So if there's anything we want to talk about, and they're also very transparent with their own ambitions. This is how I know a lot of these things. But look, I don't know if it's specifically the national second tier, but yes, they have ambitions to go all the way. And you know what's really cool about them is they're backed by $1 billion institution. The major sponsor for us is UNSW. And so they're a massive enabler. If they believe in football and they believe in the power of what football can be, then they can also open the wallet and allow the club to go to the highest level. So I think that there are some people that want to take it to the highest level possible. Yeah, let's hope they get there.
It's exciting to hear something like that. Yeah. Maeve, as we do with our guests from the New South Wales Leagues, a bit of rapid fire to bring us home.
Yes, this is our 60-second Q&A. So let's kick off. What was your first football memory?
Playing or watching?
Both.
Both? I remember watching the 2002 World Cup. I was quite young. I don't remember much of the game, but I'm Italian background, and Italy lost to South Korea in a game that I just remember my dad and my brother going crazy at the TV. And watching it back years later, I realised that some of the refereeing decisions that day and why they were going so crazy. That's my earliest memory of watching football, yeah.
And your favourite footballer of all time? Who would that be?
It links to that first one. I loved Fabio Cannavaro growing up. I've got a little air freshener of him holding the World Cup in my car because he wasn't the tallest guy, amazing defender, won a Ballon d'Or, and I always played in the back line. So I just appreciated the way he played football. And I got to meet him in Laika when he was coaching Shanghai, and he came here, Guangzhou. And yeah, it was awesome. He signed my 2006 World Cup jersey. So yeah, Cannavaro.
Day or night matches?
Night, 100%.
And the best footballer you've ever played with?
Oh.
I know a tricky one.
In the NPL?
Of all time.
Yeah, even if it was a celebrity kickabout. You know, who's the best? Who's the best?
No, because I've kicked about with some great guys way past their prime though. And I've also, growing up, I played with a lot of guys that went on to A-League and Socceroos. But at the time I played with them, I would say there was a guy I played with at Sutherland Sharks. Kaji, we called him, Tomohiro Kajiyama. And he had to go back to Japan for personal reasons. But we finished in the bottom half of the league in the NPL. He won the Golden Boot, right, as a midfielder from Sutherland Sharks and Player of the Year twice in a row. He was a phenomenon and the best guy ever, just like the epitome of professionalism. Unfortunately, had to go back to Japan at a young age, but he was an incredible player.
Something a bit different. What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh, anything by Robbie Williams, because I feel like I can. You know, I'm not great, but I feel like he's got a pitch you can kind of replicate. You know, so yeah, Robbie Williams.
Dream stadium to play in?
For me, I'd go Wembley. Because I think they do a lot of charity matches. They do Wembley Cup and things. And it's maybe realistic for me one day to play at Wembley.
Well, we'll be excited to watch that happen.
Yeah.
And what is your biggest football ick?
Oh,
do you have one?
If you ever knocking a ball around with ankle socks and football boots, you know, you look like an Oztag player or like a touch footy player. You can't. You got to have at least crew socks or knee highs are fine. You can't have ankles. Don't tell me you kick around with ankle socks, Teo. No, you can't be doing that.
I might be guilty of that.
No,
but moving on.
No, you were doing so well.
I know. What are your thoughts, actually? This is a different rapid fire question. What are your thoughts on holes in the socks? On the back, on the knee highs?
I'm not buying them. I'm not buying that. There's no way your calves are that big that you need to cut holes in
Maybe
your
if you're De Bruyne.
Maybe, but even then, at the highest level, surely they have stretchy socks. I think that is just the latest. I'm not having that. Nah.
And the last rapid fire is end of season headline for UNSW in 2025.
This is the front page of the Football New South Wales paper. Where did these guys come from? I'd like that to be the headline. Just no one expected. I don't know what that'll be. I don't want to jinx nothing, you know, but just where the hell did these guys come from? Yeah.
Claudio Fabiano, thank you so much for joining us and giving us the insights into UNSW. All the best with your football personally and to your team as well. Thanks for joining us on Kickoff.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for joining us.
And a big thanks to our final guest, Claudio Fabiano. I've got to say, that was a great chat. Really good to get his perspective. And hopefully for our listeners who may not know about Claudio Fabiano, the footballer, and may only know him as a host on television, they have a bit more depth and perspective about, seriously, some of the major sacrifices he's made for the game with his body just to come back and play the game he loves.
Yeah, definitely. He's so passionate about UNSW as well. You can really tell that he will support and has so much pride in the badge, and I think that really translates to him as a player, and then also to his hopes and future looking forward for the club as well.
So that's it for our guests on Kickoff this week. Maeve, how do you think your podcast debut went?
Well, I think it was a great debut, not to gas myself up too much. No, I couldn't have done it without you, Teo. It's really good to have someone with you with so much experience as well, helping me, find my sea legs. It's really great.
Well, I think that this will become a great platform for you, and we'll get to know you a little bit more. If you aren't familiar with Maeve yet, make sure you jump on to the Football New South Wales social channels. It's also the best place to follow on game day as well. All the games are live on the Football New South Wales YouTube channel in the top tier, and of course there is still the feature game every week in League One as well on YouTube. It's also where you can watch the Sapphire Cup final on Thursday. That will be Apia Leichhardt against Mount Druitt Town. Apia won 2-0 barely a month ago, Maeve. So I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask for a prediction, but I do think it'll be, hopefully, Mount Druitt will have learnt a lot from that, and we get a nice, tense, close cup final, because, of course, Mount Druitt won the first head-to-head, first time around when they met back in round 4. So, I don't know. I think as both teams would see it, it's 1-1. And they may yet meet in the final series at the end of the season, but gee, it would be really nice to win this one when you get to lift a trophy at the end.
Oh, definitely. Both teams are very, very hungry for the win. I think Mount Druitt, since being promoted, they have a lot to prove, and they're definitely, fighting to get more silverware in the cabinet. And I think for Apia as well, they've been battling this season trying to climb the ladder as well. So it will be a very interesting match. I think also they both have great fan bases. So the more people we get here, I think the better the football will be. It will be a great atmosphere, and what better place than Valentine Sports Park to have the Sapphire Cup final?
Well, you'll be working hard over the next month. All the best for it. And, of course, keep following the NPL Men's and Women's New South Wales competitions. We will be back on Kickoff in about a month. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Subscribe, rate us 5 stars while you're there. Leave a rating and a comment. It all helps to grow the game and grow the audience for this podcast. And if you have enjoyed, please, why not drop us that 5-star rating. On behalf of Maeve Sparrow, my name is Teo Pellizzeri. Thank you for your company on Kickoff. We'll see you again soon.
Perfect, that's crossed it, oh my word, what a save.
She gets around Dunbar, out wide, but she puts it in the net. Lovely strike, lovely bit of play.
Oh, and he's looking to catch the goalkeeper out.